What's going on, everybody? And welcome to a special taped edition of Bettin' and Boozin' plus a Pacific Horse Players guy for the Belmont Undercard stakes that are outside of the late pick five. We're actually covering the middle pick five on Belmont Stakes Day. It is a mandatory payout pick five from races 5 to 9, which includes the two grade ones, including the very sought after Met Mile and the Jaipur. Welcome in, everyone. Thanks so much for joining the show. We greatly appreciate it. Since you guys are watching this as a replay, if you guys enjoy the show, please hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button as well, and comment your best bet for all of Belmont Stakes Day. We read every single comment. Would love to see how you guys are playing the second best card on the entire year, next to, of course, the Breeders' Cup Saturday. But guys, we'll get right into it. We don't want to waste too much time here, but as you can see at the bottom side of the screen, we have podcasts every single Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we do this a hell of a lot more than just on these big Triple Crown days. So please subscribe for more horse racing content throughout the entirety of the year. We also post everything in audio form: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Bettin' and Boozin', we have a TikTok and Instagram where I post a bunch of short form content. So go follow us over there if you're interested at Bettin' and Boozin' Podcast. If you the Power Picks, guys, is our form of a tip sheet. We've been doing it for well over 4.5 years, and we give out at least 3 to 4 price play spot plays. We also give out pick 5 grids on there. And through those price plays for 4.5 years now, we've given out 862 total picks, and we're still well above positive in the ROI, and it's only $4.99 a weekend. So if you're not subscribed, humbly, you are missing out. So go to patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast for that. The link is also in the description below, and you can see previous editions of those Power Picks before you buy them. Or if you just want to learn more about the podcast, please go to hhhracingpodcast.com. Noah Maher, of course, like I said, part of the used to be part of the Bettin' and Boozin' family. Unfortunately, he got too big for Bettin' and Boozin', so he had to go get his own show with Pacific Horse Players, and one of my co-hosts, of course, Charlie Freeman from the Ohio State University. Boys, how we doing? You guys have had a ton of shows this week, of course. Noah, you guys covered. We're recording this on Wednesday night, so Noah, you covered Wednesdays. You guys had some good opinions, and some good opinions come through as well to start off the week.
Yeah, I know Jackson had, I believe it was a 9-1 or a 10-1 winner in one of the legs in the pick 5 with Clear Conscience, who I know, Kyle, you're a big fan of the 9 Hush of a Storm, who would have cast for you nicely, but it was a good pick by Jackson.
Yeah,
it seems like we've been kind of rolling on that show, kind of slowly, throwing in some middling prices. I gave out a Cherie runner, which I'm surprised Kyle didn't have a little wager on that around the time of the Preakness. But it just seems like week after week, one of the guys, either me, Jackson, or Ryan, will catch a price, between 6 or 10 to 1. And so go check it out. It seems like the boys are hot right now.
That's what it's all about, and it's a good time to catch fire with, of course, this Belmont weekend coming up. Chuckles, we covered Friday, which, of course, will be not tomorrow from now, but in 2 days. 4 grade ones. If you guys haven't watched that, go give that a watch, as a bunch of us have strong opinions on there as well.
Yeah, no, and got to do some good coverage today. Actually, just got off the live show, and then also did a show. Got to shout out our good friend overseas, Emmett. Me and Ryan did a show with him this morning, so this is now the 3rd recording of the day for me. But yeah, no, we did some good recordings Friday. Noah and the boys did good recording Wednesday that I got to look at before I, locked in my picks today, and had a pretty decent Wednesday. So hopefully that's just a sign of things to come. And yeah, no, it's good to see that Noah and them are, thriving on their podcast as we, continue to grow and expand our channels. And I got to give him credit, even though he's low bro, he's doing a decent job hosting on their end. So
yeah,
the glazing has begun 4.5 minutes into this show. But either way, yeah, final furlong pod with good friend of the podcast, Emmett Kennedy. Yeah. So if you do want to go check that out, please go do so after you finish watching this podcast. But guys, like I said, it's a mandatory payout pick 5 we're covering here, and it is going to start in race number 5 on Saturdays. We're covering all of the Belmont stakes, the stakes on Belmont Stakes Day, that are not part of the late pick 5, but we are overlapping a little bit as we cover race 9, which is the Jaipur. But race 5 is just an allowance optional, claiming 50,000 before we get into the stakes festivities. And I'm bringing up the Equibase right now so we can take a look at the morning line favorite, which you'll see on the screen right now. is a decent one with the number 2 Silver Slugger. Junior Alvarado ride for Juan Avila. Again, 5-2 is the morning line, and your second choice is number 1 Unlimited Potential, Gonzalez and Cantarmachi at 9-2, and your third choice is shared between 3 different horses, the 8, 9, and 10. Remarkably, Aguilos the Great and Rookie Card, as I bring up our picks to kick off this mandatory pay middle pick 5. And you'll see I'm going with the number 10 Rookie Card. Charlie's going with the number 2 Silver Slugger, and Noah is going with the number 9 Aguilos the Great. 3 different horses, 3 little bit different prices, and 3 different states in which they were bred in. So a ton of ways you can go in this race if you can't tell by the morning line odds. Charlie, I'll let you go first, considering that you have the morning line favorite. So what'd you like most about the number 2 Silver Slugger?
Yeah, I just think his progression has been very impressive. I mean, you look at how his career started, and he was running in Tampa, was never really putting it together, was just running in these, lower claiming level races, and then eventually, in some local stakes races, and never really having that big buyer. And then his last at an optional claiming 12,000 of all races, decides to pop an 89 and then does it again with a 93. And you just have to think at the time that these are these overinflated numbers. And obviously that's what the public thought, because then he ran in a grade 3, which is a massive step up and an aggressive move, went off at 12-1 and came within a head of defeating what you're talking about, who's a very nice horse for Wesley Ward. I mean, you talk about, putting bias aside, is a horse for Wesley who has been in the money in every single start and is 4 for 7 and was bet down to even money in that race. So clearly a very nice horse. Also coming off now buyer top back-to-back with 293s, which looks eligible for a step forward. And I just really like that this is one who just in every single start is progressing more and more, even though he is already 5 years old now. And I just feel if he takes another step forward, he's going to be really tough to beat in this race, and his figures others can't match. And honestly, I get that there is some other speed in this race, but I don't think anyone is anywhere near as fast as Silver Slugger at his absolute fastest. And I think he's going to be able to wire this field, especially with the way the track's been playing so far.
And that's the point I was going to bring up, Noah, was the fact, again, it's Wednesday, could change completely by the time Saturday rolls around. And it could just be where the formful horses of today were kind of just on the lead. So it's not necessarily, I don't know if you can call it a bias yet, because no, a lot of these horses, like I said, that were on the front end were formful and still obviously a lot of chalk won today. So a lot of horses on the lead were just maybe the best horses.
I think maybe we just see what happens tomorrow as we're filming this on a Wednesday night, tomorrow, Thursday. And maybe we see if we get a similar trend, but I can't really knock anything Charlie said. I kind of think he's the speed of the speed. I know we showed the time for him. It doesn't really seem like there's a ton of horses that kind of have that stalking style. And even if they do, they're not the most trustworthy. So it either seems like you're going to get a winner from right on the lead, or you're going to get someone from way out of it, which is why I ended up going with the 9, who in the pace projector was actually going to be last. I don't know if he can necessarily win from last, but you just see nothing but blue coated figures on his page. He's second off the layoff for Weaver, who is very good at getting the horse ready, especially second time off the bench. And I think just with the nature of the two, I know the horse that you've got, Kyle, 10's pretty quick. I know there's a couple other horses that I think are going to be pressing the 2. It just feels like if the 2 isn't able to hold off some of those other stalker types, the 9 could be the one that will be running late.
Yeah, and maybe last might be a little bit of a stretch, although, like you said, a lot of these are coated with blue figures, meaning that the paces were maybe a little bit slower than what they could be in this race, and maybe he will end up being pretty far back when the pace actually does heat up in front of him. However, Aguilos the Great always runs his race, always comes with a run. So, and if the pace does melt apart, Aguilos the Great is definitely one that you want to have in there. I'm going a little bit off this. Charlie, do you want to say something real quick?
I was going to add real quick as the only other one with the 9. I think 2 other things. I don't know if you fully highlighted them, but also this is second off the small layoff, as well as that he's getting a stretch out in distance, which I think is something that he absolutely wants. I mean, you look at his effort, and like Noah said, it's a lot of blue figures, but he showed a decent ability. I know he only closed up for third, but showed a decent ability to close up for third at 6.5. Obviously, 2 back ran his buyer top at 6.5 and came from a little bit off the pace. And I just think here with the stretch out to 7 furlongs, with a lot of, like what Noah said, just either dead senders or just fairly weak closers, I do think this 9 is pretty dangerous. I'm just a little wary, but again, if the track doesn't end up holding up the bias and it is just more that it was just the better horses, I think this 9's very live. And this is absolutely a horse I'd be using in exactas and could win for sure.
I agree. This might be one I might have overlooked, and obviously you can follow us on X. I post my picks every single day that I'm playing any of the races, and I posted today did okay, got nosed a little bit. However, we'll be back with Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So if you're watching this, please follow us on X, as you can see right next to our names on our name cards. I went with the number 10 rookie card, guys, and this might be a little bit too much of getting cute in this race. Danny Gargan hasn't run too much this year, although he's still 8 for 41, winning in that 20% range. You got Louis Saez up aboard, which we all know no one passes Louis in the stretch. Really, the only one bad race that rookie card has is when Owen Almighty and Irad tried to basically kill him and put him against the rail in the Pasco on Tampa Bay Day, if you remember that one. Other than that, he's ran really well. I find the move to State Bread Company might be a little bit of a concern. Maybe he's just not as good as I think he is. However, if that was just a confidence getting race, this was second off the layoff after, again, when he had that massive incident with Owen Almighty on the rail at Tampa. If he's ready to go and the 2's going to go out there, if the 10 can sit right off, granted he hasn't done that in the past, but if he can sit, there's no reason why rookie card can't improve off that 86 buyer. Maybe a little light on figures right now, but I think I'm going to get the price to be willing to take a chance on a horse like rookie card. Charlie, I know this is one that you've trusted in the past. Is maybe just the pace scenario not right for him, or what did you see to leave him off here?
Yeah, I mean, I just have a few concerns. I mean, again, I like that it's Louis. I like that he's the outside gate, but I think there is other speed. I also am a little concerned because this is going to be first off the layoff. I know it's not a big layoff, but nonetheless it is, so we have to see where he's at. And I just feel like walking, he's a horse I bet him on debut, and unfortunately had to watch him get nosed out in that effort to, I believe it was Tip Top Thomas, remembering correctly. Yep. Yeah, I bet him in Sovereignty, so that was an unfortunate race for me at the time. But then, came back and obviously missed out again, and then really put it all together. It seemed like in that third effort was pretty dominant on the lead. And then, as you said, I'm not at all worried about that Tampa figure. His race was over after he got crushed. My concern is in that Gulfstream race, he didn't really beat much. Joey Muscles was also in this race. I think it was like 20 or 30 to 1, who I've never really thought much of. So the main concerns for me is just, doesn't need to start. What will he do if he doesn't get the lead? Because I don't think he's as fast as the 2. And just how ready is he off this break? And like you said, also for a horse that they seem to have such high aspirations for, I mean, you look at the debut alone, that was a very high buzz race at the time. That was a race where it seemed like pretty much anybody in that field that was taking any money was supposed to be the goods. And now they put him in a race like this. Not that it's a bad race by any means. And who knows, maybe the flip side, Kyle, is, this horse is running on Belmont Stakes Day. This could be a great opportunity for this horse to, maybe not in a future race, but on a day where there's going to be a lot of eyes, take a big step forward and get things going. I have this horse as one of my Bs. I don't think he's impossible at all. I just have a few hesitations.
No, and like I said, that's completely fair. I'm hoping that he sits off the 2 and is ending up able to rate and go by him, as he's taken a lot of pace pressure before and showed that he can handle it. Two horses more, and then we will move on. The number 1, Unlimited Potential, Charlie, you and I both have in second. Noah, feel free to chime in because you don't have this horse anywhere if you want to butt up against us. But Unlimited Potential, Ilke Cantormachi, I mean, this horse has done nothing wrong, really. And if the pace does heat up, he's going to be one towards the middle. Maybe Aguilos the Great is a little too far back, and a horse like Unlimited Potential can get the jump.
Yeah, no, for me, this is my other A. This is the horse that does admittedly scare me about beating the 2, and it's because of what you said. I just think he's going to save all the ground on the rail, going to get the jump for sure, has been ultra consistent, and I feel like if he can replicate an effort, similar to his effort 3 back at 7 furlongs, or even his effort last time going 6, where, he just stays within a few lengths so he doesn't have too much work to do and is saving all the ground. It's not impossible that Silver Slugger and Rookie Card just run each other into the ground and go too fast, and Limited Potential sits right off them and then just goes right by. And like I talked about earlier, I like Noah's 9, but I think, as he even acknowledged himself, the slight concern is going to be how much work that horse is going to have to do late. And I feel like in terms of any of the horses that'll be mid-pack, I agree with what Noah said, that a lot of them kind of don't look like they can do all that much, but I think this is the only stalker in the field that really has shown the ability that can be dangerous. And so for me, in horizontals, because I was talking at the start of the pick 5, I would be mainly using the 1 and the 2. I think Unlimited Potential makes a lot of sense here.
And I completely agree with you. Obviously, I have the horse in second. Noah, you can feel free to add anything you want, maybe rebut a couple things that Charlie said, and then your 8's the last one we'll talk about before we move on.
Yeah, no, there's no real red flag that I had with the 1. I think if I were playing a pick 5, the mandatory pick 5 starting this leg, I would probably use the 1. I guess the main concern for me was that I just never know how to take these races, especially these horses when they're just up at Aqueduct in those winter races. I just don't know how high quality those races are. I'm not really, questioning the numbers, but just who he's beaten in those races. And you've got a couple horses, the two that's just, kind of proven. And then you've got a couple other horses that are coming in off layoffs or maybe some more upside. So I kind of tended to gravitate towards them. And then I'll touch on the horse that I've got in third real quick, and then we can go ahead and move on. But remarkably, with the trainer switch and the jockey switch, I think it's a good point to make on the two that Junior sticks there, because I think that probably speaks volumes on the two's chances. But no shame in getting a boy named Flavian Pratt. But I think you should look at this one carefully. That's a pretty big barn change to Billy Mott. It's been off for some time. Can definitely show some improvement from 2 to 3. Gets Lasix for the first time, which is not gonna be a problem at all. That can only help. And just another one where I was looking for someone that was maybe going to come from off the pace, and it just seems like maybe with the slower numbers, you got some other horses that are a little more proven. 6 to 1 might be a right price, and I think it's probably a price you want to try to get some decent value in a wide open race like this.
No, and you absolutely can, in my opinion. So obviously, I'm going with the number 10 rookie card. You're going with Aguilas the Great, both 6 to 1 on the morning line. So hopefully, we can create a little bit of value to kick off this mandatory pay. I was about to say late pick 5. This mandatory payout middle pick 5. I'm going 10, 1, 2. Charlie's going 2, 1, 9. Noah's going 9, 2, 8. Guys, moving over to race number 6 in this sequence, which is the Wonder again. It's a grade 2. It kicks off actually the stakes festivities on Belmont Stakes Day. It's 300,000 going a mile and 16th on the inner turf course, and this draws a very heavy favorite and probably a very likely winner, at least in my eyes, with the number 6 Nitrogen in this race. Jose Ortiz, Mark Cassie at even money or 1 to 1 for those equine edge guys out there from Chicago. Also saying 1 to 1. Second choice is number 2 Mayday Ready, Frankie Dettori at 9 to 2, and third choice is Laura Lynn for Kendrick Carmouche and Graham Motion at 5 to 1. Putting up our picks on the screen right now. No one's getting too creative. You guys are both going with number 2 Mayday Ready in second. I'm going with number 1 Al Jafara in second. We can talk about Al Jafara as we move along, but guys, there's not too much to say about Nitrogen at this point. Noah, I mean, look, she's very, very good, and there's no sign to her stopping this type of dominance, at least in this 3-year-old filly turf category.
Yeah, she's at the top of the division, no doubt. And, I tried to beat her last time with Lush Lips, and it didn't help that Lush Lips didn't break last time. And even though that's a speed horse, she was like in 6th. So I was done there. And it just, I don't know what you think, Charlie. It just seems like as she continues and progresses with the races, she almost gets more and more tactical, which I think makes her more and more dangerous, because really outside of the 5, I think who's going to end up second in this race is pretty murky. So I know she's even money, and I know I don't love to back favorites here, but I think she's just going to be way too tough in here. And, maybe people that are going to be playing in that Belmont contest, I think a lot of people are going to be keyed in here.
Yeah, no, I think she's going to be sitting wherever she wants. I think she'll sit either right off the 5, or if the 5's not even going that fast and trying to walk the dog enough. I honestly, it genuinely, and this might sound crazy, but it wouldn't surprise me if the 5 really tries to slow him up with IRED too much. I think Jose at some point could just honestly say, I have such a far superior animal that if you're going to try to hold us up too much, like, I'm happy to just take the lead if you're not, if you're going to really try to slow us down. Because I think Nitrogen's good enough where she can literally run anywhere on the track, like you said, Noah, and she's only becoming more tactical. And I get that some people might say, well, if you look at the jump, right, like she went from in the 80s to a mid 80 and then has only gotten to a high 80, right? Like there hasn't been that big number that would scream it. But for me, it's not even about, buy her top back-to-back angle. It's that I don't think we've needed to see her best. Like if you look at her earlier efforts, right, you look in the Florida Oaks, for example, you look at her race at Gulfstream where she was having to rally late, like you were pointing out, Noah, where she was more of a closing type and had to just get there. And her last 2 races were, despite, being 2 grade 2s, because she was more tactical, she didn't need to be any better. And I think that's part of the reason why the buyer was what it was. She was just so much better than the field that she just cleared off and just was in hand and was just better than them. We didn't have to see her go all out and run up the score because there's no reason to waste energy. She also, came back with an incredibly steady work to have a bullet work last time over the track, which is nice to see she has a work there at 47 and 4. I really wanted to pick against her. Not that I don't like Nitrogen. I do, just because we'll get into the other two. But you guys know very well that the other two, especially the number 2, are horses that I'm massive fans of that have treated me very well in the past. But you can't ignore how talented she is. I think the craziest thing to even look at is the fact that she ran 3rd in the juvenile turf for the fillies and was 50-1 in that race. It was 41-1 when she ran 3rd at Woodbine. It's just surreal to even associate those odds with her. Then after that, be 2-1 or less in all of her starts and absolutely live up to the hype. I just think she's the queen of this division, unless proven otherwise, like Mark Cassidy said. And she's just an incredible animal. She's so fun to watch.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you take the mapper near angle here, by her top. She's poised for another step forward. And if she takes that step forward, good luck. It's going to be very tough.
Step forward, by the way. If she does, it's even more. It's just going to be even.
That's what I mean. Good luck beating her if she takes another step forward. Mayday Ready is the horse you guys have in second, guys. I know with your favorite jockey in the States right now, this is one that's going to be absolutely running from the clouds, and that was my point with her. I think she's good, but there's just no pace set up in here at all, Noah.
Well, that's the thing. You know, in those races when she was a 2-year-old, she was pretty far out of it, but I have a feeling she's maybe going to be a little bit closer just because she's off the layoff. She's been off for a while, and it kind of seems like with some of these fillies, they get kind of quirky, and when they get eager to get back on the racetrack, they're a little more forwardly placed than typical. And I know we love to rag on Dettori, but I kind of almost want him to do what he's kind of done with other horses in the past and maybe be a little more aggressive, because we've just kind of seen what Nitrogen can do, and you're not really going to be able to outclose her. So if you're going to find a way to beat her, I think you got to be kind of heads up with her early on.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. It'll be interesting to see where Dettori has Mayday Ready placed. First time off the layoff, working well. There's nothing wrong with that. And obviously Joseph Lee, a smaller barn, however, has won at this type of layoff before as well. Maybe not to this caliber of a race, but however, it's still definitely worth noting that he has won with this type of layoff. Guys, last time, if you guys followed Keeneland, you guys know how just ridiculous that meet was for me. Al Jafara was really the kickoff for me. And granted, I know you don't have to make fun of me. I get it. It was 2 weeks into the meet. I understand that. But man, did she look visually impressive. I mean, she was dead last earlier, first time in the States. Charlie, I know that's an angle that you don't necessarily like to play, but we all were on her that day. That was part of the grade 1 gamble. She absolutely looked fantastic. Now this is going to be her second time in the States. And if I get anywhere over 6-1, kind of playing my best bet hand in here. But if if Nitrogen, I think, is just the goods, this is an easy 6-1 exacta for me in this race.
Yeah, and I don't entirely disagree. That's an exacta that, I've talked about on multiple shows. That's an exacta I'll be playing along with the 6-2. I really do think Nitrogen, obviously not that creative as a shoe-in, and I really do think it's the 1 or 2. I think they're a class above the rest. I think, again, if you go ABC, not even from, a horizontal perspective, but just from a tier list perspective, if you will, I really do think that, 2A and 2B in this field are the 1 and 2. Al Jafar was just unbelievably impressive. As you said, it's normally an angle I absolutely hate is First in America, not because, there's anything wrong with the horse, but just normally they need a start. I remember watching this race with Noah and being stressed out, partially because of how the track's playing, but also just it's not a great position to be in. And again, first race in America, and just thinking, oh my God, she just has way too much to do. She's not going to get there. And then she just floated by effortlessly. I mean, I remember right after that race, over and over yelling in Noah's face and in his ear how absurd and ridiculous it was that the public let us get 5-2 on this horse, and that she should have been 6-5. Now, admittedly, the one concern I think we'd all agree on is she didn't beat anything. But at the end of the day, you can only beat what's in front of you. I think what speaks volumes is the horse that finished second in that race is 20-1 in this spot. So clearly that's what they think of the field as well, which is fine. But I think she is absolutely eligible to take another step forward. I think it's positive that she has a work over the surface and that it's a decent work. I think that Flavian and Chad understand that they're going to have her show a little more speed, because with this race not having much pace, if she's as far back as she was in that last race, especially against a horse like Nitrogen, who Noah mentioned is only getting more tactical, she's not even going to be competitive. But I think Flavian will make sure that she's close enough. She's going to save all the ground on the rail. She makes a ton of sense. Briefly on Mayday Ready, Kyle, just a slight pushback. I think she can be a little tactical. Like if you look at her race, Kentucky Downs, when she broke her maiden, she was within, 2 to 4 lengths for most of it. So I think if she can sit a little closer to that, I don't think it's as impossible. And also, like in the juvenile fillies turf, she got steadied and honestly didn't really get a good ride from Dettori, and then figured it out late and came flying like a truck late. So I don't know how far back she has to be. It's also tough because I had mentioned this actually earlier on Emmett's show. Weirdly, Frankie has ridden her incredibly in every single start. The problem is that was also when Dettori fell off a cliff. So the problem is, I don't know if it's going to be, was that just before Dettori fell off a cliff, or does he also just ride her so aggressively well, like Noah's hinted at, that maybe they can put it together? And also, broke the maiden here as well. So there is still a lot to like with that one. And I just want to ask you two real quick before we move on, what you guys made out of the race that Virgin Colada came out of, because there's a few in here that are, medium prices. Virgin Colada, Opulent Restraint, and Laurelin all came out of that same race. And personally, I don't want anybody in that race. I thought Virgin Colada is the one I would want, but there's no pace, and I didn't think any of them looked all that good.
I agree. I agree with you, Charlie. I wasn't a huge fan of the race. I guess the one I would want maybe is the 5, just because of the pace scenario. I know I looked at the 8 Laurelin very carefully, but it seemed like she kind of got the run of the race, and Opulent Restraint was kind of getting tired. And even when Laurelin went by at the very end, Opulent Restraint kind of dug in, and Laurelin just kind of hung a little bit. So I don't know, it just visually wasn't great. And like you said, Virgin Colada was coming from the back of the pack, but just with her natural running style, she's really gonna have a setup.
I completely agree with both things that you guys just mentioned. As obviously you can see by our picks, we all have 6-1-2 in some type of fashion. I'm going 6-1-2, and both Charlie and Noah are going 6-2-1 in the grade 2 Wonder again. But guys, let's move on to race number 7, the middle leg of this middle pick 5. It's the True North grade 3, 6.5 furlongs for older males. 400,000 is the purse. Draws another field of 8. And as I show you guys the field right now, the morning line favorite is the number 6 Mulligan, Flavian Pratt, Rudy Brissett at 2-1. The number 5, the New Jersey bred Bookham Dano, a nice fan favorite coming back. Paco rides for Derek Ryan at 5-2. And your third choice is Nakatomi, the returning for Irad Ortiz and Wesley Ward at 4-1. And you'll see 2 of us are going with Mulligan. Actually, Charlie based picks there, both going 6-5-4. But Noah going with a horse, not even a zero buyer angle, a didn't start the race angle.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm just joking with you, but very interested to see what you like mostly about Concrete Glory.
Yeah, I might lose a lot of people with this pick on Concrete Glory, but I'll try and convince you guys. First of all, I think if this race were 6 furlongs, I would really like her. First of all, he's the fastest horse in the race. And if you just look from a pace scenario, there's a couple other horses that are pretty quick. The 3 Surveillance, and then there's another horse down at the bottom, Full Moon Madness, and obviously Mulligan's pretty quick too. But I don't think anyone is nearly as fast as Concrete Glory. And I think with the nature of the 6.5, I think Sayas might be able to get a little bit of a breather. I know we've talked a little bit about how the track's already been playing, and I know there is a little bit of rain in the forecast. I'm not sure how that's necessarily going to affect the track, but from the limited experience that I have with this dirt track at Saratoga, when they do get a little moisture, it only helps speed. And I really think they're going to kind of underestimate Concrete Glory and let him kind of go on the lead. I know you mentioned it, Kyle. The race at Pimlico was just kind of a disaster, and I really didn't like him at all, to be honest, just because he had Booth to his outside. But Booth's, the fastest sprinter in the country right now for Asmussen. So that he was kind of up against it to begin with, and he didn't even get a chance to run. So they bring him back quick, obviously, because he, didn't exert any energy or anything. Comes back with a 35 flat at Saratoga, and they shipped him here early. So it kind of looked like once that happened, they were getting ready to point to this spot. And I think a lot of people are just going to be, 5-6, 6-5. But I think people should take a really long look at the 1 Concrete Glory.
I think that's very fair. And Charlie, I don't know about you. I actually had the other thought. I thought Mulligan was the fastest one in this race. And whether he clears off of Concrete Glory, or even if he if Pratt decides Concrete Glory breaks, he'll just sit right off, because Surveillance, I think, is fast. I don't think he's nearly as fast, at least anymore. I mean, he's 8 years old now. Maybe back in his heyday, he was as fast. And the only other speed is to his outside, and I'm not sure Full Moon Madness is nearly as fast as either Concrete Glory or as Mulligan. And if Mulligan sits off of a horse like Concrete Glory, in my opinion, I don't see how this horse does not win this race. And I could be jinxing us right there, but Mulligan's been up against it a lot from pace scenarios in the last couple races. If he gets a favorable one here, it could just be exactly what he needs to get back to his winning ways.
Look, even though I love Bookham Dano and I'm a massive fan of him, I think this race couldn't work more against him. Mulligan's going to be my best bet of all the stakes races on this day and one of my best bets of the day in general. I just think this is a shoo-in for him, to be honest, and I don't care if that's jinxing it. Gets Pratt back aboard. I hear everything Noah's saying. I think it's a fair point, and I say it like a broken record a million times. If I need a jockey that's going to be aggressive to get to the lead and be brave on the lead, I want Louis over any jockey in the country. That being said, again, and I also do agree, I think Concrete Glory, whether he's as fast as Mulligan or not, he will get the lead because there is no alternative. There is no option. You're on the rail. You're a horse that's been running against shorter, and you're very clearly outclassed by, the big three that's in this race, if you will. So the only option is for Louis to send like a banshee and just hope that he can hold on. The problem is I think Mulligan, without even having to work that hard, will naturally be sitting just off this one. And if you're giving me Flavien Prat with a horse of Mulligan's ability that's, within a half a length or even 3/4 of a length of the one turning for home, I don't see a world where Mulligan, especially also second off the layoff, I don't see a world where he doesn't just blow right by and go to win by open lengths. Again, I like that Noah's getting creative here. I don't mind the Concrete Glory shot at all. I mean, if you look at some of the other middling price horses that you could have picked, I like the idea of Concrete Glory a lot more, especially with his thought process. And because it's just one of those weird, rare sprint type races where there isn't a ton of speed, where normally it almost feels like you go the other angle, where you're trying to get cute and find a closer that gets a meltdown. This is one that's the other way, so I don't mind it at all. But I agree with you on everything, Kyle. And then moving into the 5, Bookham Dano just to the inside. I mean, you want to talk about just such a game and fun horse who ran his absolute heart out last time out. Does unfortunately have Paco Lopez aboard again, which is just so frustrating because I love Bookham Dano so much and he's such a fun horse, and it just sucks that he has such a terrible jockey that has to ride him. Unfortunately, the reality is, jockey aside, the setup is not there for him, in my opinion. I think he's at his best going 7. I think he can get 6.5 still. I think he's naturally so tactical and talented that he can make it work. But I think with that, he needs enough pace for that to work, and I don't think he's going to get enough. I think because of his natural ability, I think Concrete Glory is going to have too much taken out of him from trying to hold off Mulligan, and Bookham Dano will be able to rally to get up for second, and he'll try to make it close. And again, I think he has the talent to be as good as Mulligan or any in here, but I don't know what you thought, Kyle, or Noah, because we all kind of have him underneath, but do you all kind of disagree from a pace and distance scenario? It's just kind of, he's just up against it a little.
Yeah. And the thing is that, to Noah's point, I do agree. I think a lot of people are just going to have 6-5 in this spot. Not necessarily that it's unwarranted, but again, this is nothing creative by any means that Charlie and I are going with, but I agree. And the thing that I found pretty fascinating, granted, they went, decently slow for a Colonial track that was playing very fast that day.
Yeah.
He's actually been a little more tactical than he has been in the past, which I think has actually helped him in his 2 races. And if he can continue to show that, there's no reason why, even if he can't get to Mulligan, he can at least get second. Again, no, it's nothing creative, but it's just you don't like to pick chalk every race, but sometimes it just kind of, you're trying to get a little too cute, and sometimes it just stares you in the face.
Yeah, no, and if I wasn't going with the 1, I would have had a really long thinking process about whether to go with the 6 or the 5, just because I think it's really tough to split these two, because Bookham Dano, obviously, I thought ran better in the Churchill Downs, but it just seemed like with how Mulligan ran in that race, he probably needed one. And I just think deep down, I think Mulligan's probably the better horse. But then again, the 6.5 is a little weird to me with both of them, because Mulligan, the only time he's run less than 7 furlongs as of recent, he was 8th in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I know it was a very quick pace, but he kind of found himself a little bit further back and was a little too short for him. And then, Bookham Dano ran 6 furlongs in the Jersey Shore and did it, but he hasn't done it in a long time. And like you said, Kyle, he's been a little more tactical. So it's just, I don't know. It's almost a bit of a rider's race, in my opinion. And it just seems like there's only one instruction for Saez on the 1, and that's to go. And then everyone else, there's a question of where they're going to sort themselves really.
No, and I think that's very fair. And especially since you're going to get paid to find out, you're going to get 8-1. There's definitely a decent enough, a good enough price to try and take a shot on a horse that might be able to wire them. Charlie, last horse we'll talk about, then we'll move on. Nakatomi coming back over from Maidan, where a lot of people were against him, and he ran very, very well and the Golden Shaheen. Now he's made over $1.5 million with that second place effort. This will be off a little bit of a layoff, but realistically, it's second off that Breeders' Cup Sprint layoff. Makes a ton of sense. And this is another one that, likes to close a lot, but has the ability to be tactical as well.
Oh, no, I completely agree. And if you look, again, I always talk about this with Wesley Ward horses. He's working very forwardly, which is crucial because if a Ward horse isn't working well, especially at the, these that are at the top of the game, you're in trouble. And yeah, look, the other thing you have to acknowledge is this horse loves Saratoga, right? 2 for 3 on the win end, all 3 times in the money. And if you look at his effort going, with the 6 flat there, that was a race like you mentioned, Kyle, where he specifically not just ran a by or top, but where he was a lot more tactical and sat just off the lead. And if you remember, obviously going further back, but when he had run at the Breeders' Cup where I needed him to, get the Breeders' Cup Sprint and get that trifecta home for me, he sat a lot closer in that race. So I do think there is that tactical speed. My concern, though, is it is the first race back in the U.S. after running the UAE, and sometimes when these horses have that first race back from, an overseas race that, they need one and we don't know exactly where they're going to be at, also does have to stretch out to the 6.5. And to be honest, even though he's run pretty decently, and again, he ran massive in Dubai. I don't really know where that came from. I feel like we would all kind of agree that he had sort of never really replicated that Saratoga form. And the Phoenix, he was pretty disappointed where federal judge wiped the floor with him. And then in that weird Breeders' Cup Sprint race where Straight No Chaser won, he was also pretty disappointed and never really picked his feet up there. So my concern is I just feel like on pure ability, he's not at the level of the 5 or the 6. And I just feel like in a race where it seems like the only way you could really beat Bookham Dano or Mulligan in this race is likely you're going to have to already have the jump on them. I'm just not really sure where Nakatomi's path to victory is. Yeah. I'm just kind of banking on him being able to get up for third because of Concrete Glory having to work too hard, but I could have easily just placed the 1 and 3rd as well.
I couldn't agree with you more, and it's just a matter, again, Noah said it, it's going to be a rider's race to see where everyone sorts themselves out. But for Charlie and I, obviously hoping Mulligan sits right off of Concrete Glory if he goes to the lead, and then top of the stretch should never look back. Obviously, Noah hopes the latter does not come true for the True North. I'm going 6-5-4 as Charlie, and Noah's going 1-6-5. Guys, moving on to a race that was building up to be a very, very fascinating, huge field race, and unfortunately, it only came up with a field of 5. But I'll tell you what, guys, it's a pretty stout field of 5 in this year's edition of the Metropolitan Handicap, of course, aptly named the Matt Mile for $1 million, 3-year-olds and upward. As I bring up the field right now, morning line favorite, even money, the number 1 Fierceness shows up here. Johnny V, Todd Pletcher at even money. Like I said, the Breeders' Cup champion White Abario shows up. Irad Ortiz, Safi Joseph, 9-5, and your third choice is the number 4, Just a Touch, Florent Giroux for Brad Cox. And somehow Noah preaches to me about having balls all the time, and I'm the only one to have some balls here. I'm going with the number 4, Just a Touch. You guys are both going with Fierceness. Look, I could seem like an absolute moron here by picking against a horse that probably well and truly leads this division. This is a mile, obviously the Met Mile. It's coming out of the Wilson Chute this year, of course. Normally at the old Belmont Park, this would be run 1 turn. However, of course, it's not really a turn, of course, out of the Wilson Chute. It's kind of like, one of these, not necessarily one of these,
Yeah, like you're bearing in the direction. You're not fully making a turn.
They call it a bend, right?
Yeah, that's what Howard called it. He called it a bend. That's what he called it. But either way, guys, only field of 5. Of course, that also works out for the Wilson Chute. As you get higher in field size, it gets a little bit on the iffy side. So, Charlie, look, there's not too much to say. It's same thing with last race, really, right? With last couple races with Nitrogen. There's not too much to say about Fierceness. But that last race, coming back from the Ali Sheba, if you tried to play against him, you were sorely, sorely mistaken.
Yeah, I think one other thing we do have to highlight real quick is Castle Chaos is cross-entered and likely will not be running here because he actually has a chance in that other race. I was going to crack a joke and try to say that it's the only reason I didn't have him on top and the rest of us also didn't is because he scratched out, and obviously Flavian hopping on board was because he thought he was the best horse in this race. I'm done with the jokes. Just had to do something to make this race a little more interesting. But look, Fierceness looked the part. looked really good in the Alashiba, showed a different side of him where he was able to, sit right off and be a little patient and then go by. I think he's going to be tough in here. I know I've been on the White Abarrio fan club for a while now, and I'm hopping off. But for me, I do actually think a part of it is the track that this is being run at. If this was in his backyard in Gulfstream, I think White Abarrio is basically unbeatable against any horse in the country, in the world, when he runs at Gulfstream. It's just his home track. He's dominant there. He's just inevitable. There's nothing you could really do about him. And if you look at fierceness, I mean, he's 3 for 3 at Saratoga, so it's kind of the other way around, where now White Abarrio is going to have to try to beat fierceness at his track. And also, I think at a mile, even though I think both of them truly would want longer, I think White Abarrio is the one who would prefer it to be longer more than fierceness would really need it. Also, like for fierceness, that this is second off the layoff, whereas for White Abarrio, not that it's a big layoff by any means, but it is a little first off the layoff, if you will. Not a big layoff, but nonetheless somewhat of a layoff. So I think a lot more works towards fierceness here. Obviously, these are going to be the two that are going to take the majority of the money. And I'm also curious to hear what you two think, because I think what makes this race a little fascinating is, even though it'll likely be a field of 4, I think it's going to be a fairly compact field, because all these horses are going to have naturally a decent amount of speed. I mean, I guess the only safe bet is really White Abarrio will probably be in the back, but I think it's going to be pretty bunched up.
I mean, no, I think the biggest thing also with that as well, the biggest thing is the distance of the Met Mile. I mean, you have fierceness, obviously, mile of 16th, but he's a classic distance runner. White Abarrio is a classic distance runner, but has run well going 7. And then, Castle Chaos probably not going to be in this race, but if he is, he's the true miler in here. Just a Touch ran super well at a mile and a 16th, a mile and an 8th. And then Raging Torrent is really your mile specialist, winning, of course, the Godolphin Mile in Maidan. For White Abarrio and fierceness, that mile could play into a lot of these, a lot of tactics and riders and stuff like that in this race.
Yeah, it certainly could. I don't want to make it dissuade me in picking the best horse in the race. So I just think fierceness is really good. Pletcher doesn't have to necessarily go to this race if he doesn't think that a mile is something that he's going to appreciate. So in the Alashiba, I know I liked him a little bit, and the horse he beat, Most Wanted, actually ran a really nice second, and then came back last weekend and won. I believe it was an allowance race at Churchill. But it just looked like fierceness was kind of shaking out for us, and then you see the time and realize a couple minutes after the race that he broke a track record, and it just seems like he's only going to improve off of that. And Charlie mentioned it; he's never been beaten at Saratoga, so this doesn't seem like this is the opportunity to try to do that this time. But Kyle, I love the pick. Just a Touch. Very talented. He's kind of the up and comer, a little undiscovered. And I'll tell you what, you're not getting anywhere near 7-2 in his next few races if he wins this time.
And that's really my point here. I'm glad you hit on that. And even though you took away my thunder a little bit there, that's exactly what I think is with fierceness and White Abarrio in this race. You're almost guaranteed a decent price with Just a Touch as the third choice. And granted, is he probably up to snuff with White Abarrio and fierceness? No, probably not. But that's the wild card, is that those last 2 races against lesser, of course, were so good and so reserved in the tank that if he can, Raging Torrent's going to go. My hope is fierceness is third, White Abarrio is in the back. Raging Torrent sends like a banshee, gets in front, Just a Touch lets him go, sit behind, although we do have a little bit of this, unfortunately. But if he's able to just take back, sit off of Raging Torrent, get the jump on a horse like fierceness, I feel like that's the only real way you can beat him, especially at this type, especially with the mile distance, right? If you're running a mile and a quarter, I feel like I'd feel less of that type of, get the jump at him at a mile. But if you can sit in front of fierceness, and if he's as good as he's showed in the last 2, maybe even show a little bit of improvement, and you're getting the price to, in my opinion, to find out if he's better than fierceness and White Abarrio at this configuration, at this distance, I really, really like Just a Touch in this race. And obviously 58-4 shows me Brad Cox has this horse ready to go. Again, I could look absolutely stupid when it comes post time on Saturday, but like I said, feel like I'm getting the price to find out, and I appreciate, obviously, the confidence from you, Noah, in the pick, and it's just a matter of, can he be good enough? If this race was run at a mile and an 1/8 or a mile and a quarter, I might have a little bit different reservations, but Just a Touch at the Met Mile, I think this will really, really suit him. feel free to push back, guys. Charlie, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I was saying,
this will be the last thing, then we'll move on.
My one question is just going to be for you, Kyle, is I don't know if it bothers you or concerns you at all, but just that after Just a Touch, came back off the layoff and romped by 10 lengths, that they chose to send him to an N2X and not, try to bridge him in some, I'm not saying it has to be in the level race, that Fierceness or White Abario came out of, but, just some sort of even lower level stakes race to bridge it. To me, it was a bit bizarre, and again, don't really know what to make of it. Obviously now it doesn't matter, but just, in terms of how much they truly, I guess not believe in this horse, because I obviously think it's a bright future, but how ready this horse really is for a race of this caliber that, after that allowance race, they went to an N2X rather than any sort of stakes race to bridge this.
And Noah, obviously you can feel free to jump in here because obviously you did work for these people previously. I thought this was the plan all along, and that's why that N2X really doesn't bother me. They eased him in at a fairgrounds allowance N1X. I mean, never a worry. And then they eased him in a little bit, went to an N2X at Keeneland and see what they really have. Absolutely wiped the floor with that one too. Now shows up in a race he's probably meant to be in here, Noah. I mean, look, again, could he be as good? Is he as good as Fierceness? I don't know, but that's what I'm willing to find out at a price of 4-1.
No, I think you're spot on with the intentions because that day at Keeneland they had the Ben Ali.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, frozen guy.
The Ben Ali.
The Ben Ali. Oh no, unlucky for the man himself.
Well, while he's lagging, I'll briefly just touch on the 5, Kyle, because I feel like
that'll be the last horse.
Yep. Touch on everybody. I think this one's a little interesting. Again, I think one of my concerns, as I was touching on already, is that first race back after being overseas in the UAE, and also just I know you mentioned that this is probably the one who wants the mile the most. But I also will push back slightly in that I get that he ran massive in that race and fair play to him. But if you look at the rest of Raging Torrent's career, it really has mainly been more at these sprints. So I just kind of wonder when he's running against some of these others who are all naturally fast and going to make him work. And also this is by far the toughest field he's had to face. And also, even though we've criticized the Torrent for his riding to an extent, like Noah touched on earlier with Mayday Ready, it's been for being too aggressive. And I know none of us have the source anywhere, but for me, that those at least were some of my reasons I left this horse out of my top 3 in terms of potential red flags. It's just the competition, the setup, how the ride might turn out. I think that I respect the confidence from Doug O'Neill, but I think this is asking a lot.
Welcome back, guy.
Thanks.
Anyway, you want to finish off your thought and then we'll move on. But I agree with you, Charlie, on Raging Torrent.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys heard from what I said, but I was saying
Ben Ali was
left off with Ben Ali, and then it was it.
Yeah, the Ben Ali was the same day, and I think he ran a faster time and a better number. So just going back to what you said, Kyle, I think they were just using that to springboard themselves into the race on Saturday.
I agree with you completely, and obviously, for my sake, I will hope because I will be playing a bet on this horse. While it might not be the best bet, because I feel like playing a best bet against a horse like Fierceness is just a death sentence in its own right. Although I will definitely be at least placing a win bet on Just a Touch come the Met Mile. I'm going 4-1-2. Charlie's going 1-2-4. Noah's going 1-4-2, and most likely a 4-horse field with the only other horse being the number 5, Raging Torrent. Guys, moving to the last race that we're going to cover, and this race is actually part of the late pick 5. It is the Jaipur, the grade 1. What used to be Pete Visco used to relay as my race, just because I had Smoke and Jay that one time who got absolutely molested at the break and then never had a chance from there. But either way, guys, this is actually, as you guys will see by the morning lines, this is actually one of the more lopsided Jaipurs that I can remember since I really started playing, and really paying attention to horses. Think big. Ben Curtis, Mike Stidham, 6-5 on the morning line in a turf sprint. Granted, obviously at Belmont Park, this used to be run at 6. Now it's run at 5.5 because they can't run 6 at Saratoga. Second choice is all the way to the outside. The second from the outside, the number 9, AG Bullet, Flavian Pratt, and Richard Baltus at 7-2. And you have to go all the way up to 8-1 to find your third choice between the number 3, Our Shot, and the number 5, Arzak. Bringing up our picks for the last leg that we will talk about two of us are going to number 2, Think Big. Charlie's actually going with a horse that I don't have anywhere. Noah has in 3rd, the number 9, AG Bullet. This is a horse very, very fast. No, Charlie, what'd you like most about AG Bullet as I bring up the time for him?
Yeah, I'll try to be pretty brief on it because I know I already had covered this race earlier tonight. I like AG Bullet a lot in this race, to be honest. It was actually a rare occasion where a horse in a turf sprint was one of my best bets, but I really liked him last time out. I know it was first off the layoff, and I do actually like now that he's second off the layoff. And Pete had given a stat about how good AG Bullet has been second off the layoff. Also gets Pratt aboard, which is a massive upgrade over Rispoli, who, with all due respect, gave a pretty bad ride last time, got stuck on the rail, and then just got steadied over and over again and had nowhere to go. I think AG Bullet could have and probably would have won that race with a clean trip. I think Queen Maxima is a really nice horse, so I think she would have gone toe-to-toe with her, and it would have looked nice. I like the 5.5 distance for her as well because she's typically been one that's been running longer, and, I know, but granted, in her one sprint at Del Mar, she was obviously right there before losing to the monster that is Starlust. I just think AG Bullet is working well, gets Pratt aboard as an upgrade, second off level. I just think there's a lot to like, and I highlighted this in the other show. I can't in a race like a turf sprint that we all agree is our least favorite kinds of races and that are so unpredictable. Not that Think Big has done anything wrong, but I can't take a horse at 6-5 in a race like this. I rather take a chance on AG Bullet at 7-2.
Oh, and he's muted.
It's against my new religion, Charlie, as you know, to lose as little money as possible in these turf sprints. I agree with you. 6-5 is pretty short, but man, Noah, has he been pretty damn good and probably very warranted at that 6-5. Won the Shakertown, and that was the time to have him. That's for damn sure. At 10-1 in that race, then came back at the turf sprint on Derby Day, ended up winning that race very easily as well. And if there's not a whole lot of speed, which judging by time form standards, there isn't going to be again, with how tactical he is, if he runs his race, this race could be good and done.
Yeah, talk about a horse in tip-top form, and one that I wish I had at 10-1 in the Shakertown. But
yeah,
last time in the turf sprint, it just kind of didn't look like he was going to get there, and then just kind of the last 100 yards, he just kind of kicked it into another gear. And I don't think Boss Sully was really backing up. I think Big just went and got him. And he just showed kind of an incredible turn of foot. I almost kind of think this race, out of the 5 races that we've talked about, is a little more dependent on the weather than most, because I think with some give in the ground, that upgrades Think Big, and I think it downgrades the 9 that Charlie's got and the 3 that I also like a little bit and hoping it stays firm. But I think if you're playing this sequence, either the early one that we're talking about that finishes here or the late one that the other guys just talked about, and it starts here, feels like you have to make the decision. Either you single here or you spread and try to beat them.
Couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly what I was. You actually hit on both my points that I was going to say with the give in the ground and the fact that if you're playing this horizontally, I understand it's a turf sprint, but at the end of the day, Think Big. This is a very likely winner, and a lot of people are going to single him. So if you can beat him, your payout increases exponentially. But if you can't beat him, there's no reason in using anybody else, because that'll just double, triple what the price is going to be of your pick 5 for maybe, all for naught, no matter if you're playing the middle or late pick 5. There's not obviously not too much to say about Think Big. Noah, our shot was actually a horse I had in the mix. I think I had him in second at some point as well. This is one of those horses that maybe his prime's just a little bit behind him necessarily, but if he can find that 100 again, obviously he's well in the mix, if not just to get in the money, but to win.
Yeah, and I wanted to give him one more shot, no pun intended. But 2 of his better races in his career were right here at Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
He just missed against Super Quest in the allowance race, and then backed it up with a nice close second to Big Invasion in the Harvey Pack. That was a 98 and 100. I know he backed that up with a nice win in the Woodford, but he just kind of seemed like he was getting good at that time. And I'm going to give him one more shot just because, the Tampa race, he was off the layoff. Things didn't work out for him. He was on that soft Keeneland turf in the Shakertown, which if you actually look at the 2024 edition of the Shakertown, they were kind of like very similar races where he was just kind of parked out wide, where the surface was a little more forgiving for some of those horses that like to give in the ground. So it's just kind of the scenario and what I was kind of alluding to earlier, where the softer the turf is, the more money I'm going to put on the 2, and then the firmer it is, if we get there by the time this race happens on Saturday, maybe I'll sprinkle a little bit on the 3 and the 9.
I agree with you completely from that standpoint as well. He said, Charlie, you have the number 4, My Boy Prince, who I am actually interested as well. This comes out of the elusive quality race, which a race I know very well as Shards ran in that race, which was on Derby Day. Again, he's very speedy, very tactical in a race does not have a whole lot of speed. I'm assuming Lizcano is going to go, and if there's one of the speed of the speeds, this is probably one of them, if not the one.
Yeah, no, and I just think there's a lot to like with My Boy Prince. I think it's always interesting when a trainer, especially well-respected one like Mark Cassidy, decides to try something so new, especially over a horse who, had so much decent success going further, obviously, and also on the synthetic before that. Actually started out running shorter and then ended up moving over to these distances. And then after that, this was also first off a pretty decent layoff, which I thought was impressive. Like you said, was able to get to the lead and then hold them all off. And again, this is another one of those, kind of like when we talked about in that dirt sprint, where it's weird that it's a turf sprint. And obviously there is more pace in this one than in that dirt sprint with the outside horse Coppola alone. But still not a crazy amount of speed. And I just think My Boy Prince will probably be sitting, I don't know if you can get the time for him up, but probably similar around where AG Bullet will probably be. And I think they'll be sitting right off of Coppola. If I had to get, then
yep,
exactly.
So I'm pretty good.
Hoping it'll work out. I just think they'll be sitting right off, and then they'll be better off. Now, granted, I just think, it is second off the layoff, so that should help as well. But I just don't think My Boy Prince is quite to the level of AG Bullet or Think Big. But I think from a setup perspective, it makes a ton of sense to finish in the top 3. And look, like you guys said, if you are going with the angle of beat Think Big, I think My Boy Prince is a must-use, especially at 10-1 on your horizontals. And if you are the camp of singling Think Big, but you're looking for a way to turn some value because you don't like him at 6-5, I think My Boy Prince at 10-1 underneath and at exact at the very least makes a ton of sense. And why can't this horse take a step forward?
I completely agree. This is the second time I'd at 4 years old as well, so can definitely show some improvement there. Obviously, I think so as well. I have him in 3rd. Allegon's the last horse I want to touch on, guys, before we move on to best bets here. This is another horse coming out of that elusive quality race, was a little bit farther back than a lot of those horses. My Boy Prince was really the only one that stayed up there that was on the pace, but Allegon showed some really nice closing speed. The only thing I don't like about Allegon from a win standpoint is, one, he might just be a couple low on the figures of a horse like Think Big, but also I think he's a lot better going 6 than he is 5.5 or 5. As you can see, Edward Allard has really kept him at that 6 anywhere he can. Did run in the Jaipur last year, didn't run very well. However, that was against a very nice horse in Cogburn last year, who was very red hot in the summer. So willing to give him another chance here, at least to get up in the money. And he won't be necessarily a dead closer. He'll be a little more tactical early, which might in turn get a little bit of a jump on a horse like Think Big and maybe able to stay in the money. But again, these turf sprints are so hard. If it's not Think Big, it could be many other horses in here. So again, from a horizontal standpoint, like Noah said, it's either single Think Big or go against him and use 5 or 6, and you can definitely catch a price if Think Big does not win. I'm going 2-8-4. Now Charlie's going 9-2-4. Noah's going 2-3-9 to round out this pick 5 sequence. Charlie, I have yours up first, so I'll let you go first. For best bets, you have race 6 and exact to 6 over 1-2. That is, of course, the nitrogen race over Al Jafara and Mayday Ready. And I told the boys to give me picks, best bets for the entire day of Belmont Stakes Day, because obviously we won't be covering the late pick 5. Howard, Paul, Charlie, Ryan, and whoever else did that show already did that as well. So I told the boys to give me whatever best bets they wanted. Race number 10, Charlie, that is Zulu Kingdom, 6-5 morning line. You'll be singling there, and then going Big Truz in a double at 10-1 morning line, and Patch Adams at 5-1.
Yeah, I mean, look, we already talked extensively about the nitrogen race, so I'll just be brief. Like I said, if we're talking tiers-wise, for me, nitrogen's in a class of her own, and then I think Al Jafara with a step forward and Mayday Ready with her past abilities. Yeah, up yours.
It's a family show.
are very. We've already had a few swear words on this show. We're getting demonetized anyway. Anyway, I think those are very clearly 2A and 2B in this field anyway. So I'm going to play those two Stone Cold Exactas. That race that I forgot the name of it, that one in New York we talked about. I don't think any of the horses coming out of that race looked any good. And then going to the next one again, I've been number one leader ahead of the Zulu Kingdom Hate Club, but man, is that field weak. I think Zulu Kingdom's going to romp and win for fun. And look, if Zulu Kingdom loses, obviously it would be pretty bad for me, but at the same time, at least then I could celebrate the downfall. But it's not going to happen. One of the most likely winners of the weekend going to end up winning by 5+ lengths, most likely. And then going into the next race, I think the Woody Stevens is the most exciting race of the weekend. You could argue right up there with the Belmont. Definitely the most competitive. I don't think we would all pick any race over that one. I think almost any horse in that field could win. So I'm going to play doubles into two horses that I'm going to get very nice prices with Big Truz and Patch Adams. I think you could argue, I know Noah, when you and I were talking off air about it, that if you watch that replay, the race that they came out of going against each other was as impressive of a race and effort as we've seen from any of the horses in the field based off what their last efforts were. And I think Big Truz is more upside than any horse of the field with only 2 career starts so far. And Patch Adams just seems like a much better animal in these kinds of races and not the Derby fever syndrome types of races.
I couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, Charlie, you'll see my best bets. I disagree with you a little bit in the Zulu Kingdom race. However, obviously, good luck with your best bets. If it's not me, I hope it is you in race number 10. Noah, going to you. 2 simple win bets, and that's what we like to see around here. Noah talked extensively. Race number 7, win on the number 1, Concrete Glory, and in race number 11, going with the man, as Paul Halloran noted it, as the Chancer McPatrick Revenge Tour. Race 11, win on the number 10, Chancer McPatrick.
Yeah, Concrete Glory, I think the instructions are pretty simple size. It's just going to go from the inside and see if he can hold off Mulligan and or Bookham Dano. And hopefully the 6.5 is maybe a little too short for him. Get some moisture in the track, and Concrete Glory is able to take him all the way at a nice 8-1. And then fast forward to race 11, I'm really going back to the well with Chancer. I wasn't really a huge fan of him. I really liked him a lot in the Bluegrass and was very puzzled and confused with why he didn't run very well. There's a combination of number 1, getting back to Saratoga, number 2, the cutback, and number 3, they take the blinkers off. I think it's just going to give him a fresh start. And with the amount of pace in there, I know that one of the Baffords has blinkers on. There's just a lot of speed in that race. So I just think it sets up really, really well for him. And Pratt rides back, and there's a lot of horses Pratt could ride in that race, and he sticks with Chancer. I think that's going to make all the difference. So hoping for close to 4-1.
Hey, I get it completely. And if he does win, obviously, it's like Paul hopes, the Revenge Tour will start. Noah, good luck with your best bets. I kind of already tipped my hand a little bit on the first one, guys. I love Al Jafara. However, I think Nitrogen might just be a little bit too tough for her in that race. Ice cold 6-1 exacta into Wonder Again, race number 6. And I've been waiting for States Rights to run back after that last race and that allowance at Keeneland, man. That knifing between crap just does not do it for me. But of course, he gets back here. Has to beat a horse like Zulu Kingdom. But I think that figure is light just because of everything that States Rights had to do with a clean trip. I think States Rights wins by at least 3, if not more than that. And this is a whole different conversation that we're having in this race. States Rights should have a little bit of a decent amount of setup in that race. So if he does, again, he's going to have to beat Zulu Kingdom, who looks to have the jump. But States Rights, I think, is good enough to do it for Belladonna and the Cherie DeVaux Racing Barn. Everyone, thank you guys all so much for watching this very special taped edition of Betting and Boozing here on the HHH Racing Podcast, which will end up being episode 134, which covers the middle pick 5 of the Belmont Undercard Stakes Day, covering races 5 through 9. And until next time, everybody, for my co-hosts, Noah Maher and Charlie Freeman, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.